here's something that took me years to understand about British culture. Television isn't just entertainment here. It's a shared national experience that really binds the country together in ways that sometimes seem impossible in other countries. Americans might have water cooler conversations about the latest Netflix series, but British people reference TV shows from decades ago like they're part of the national curriculum that I somehow missed. Within weeks of moving to the UK, I was sitting in conversations where everyone was quoting shows I'd never heard of, doing impressions of characters I didn't recognize, and referencing episodes that had apparently become part of the collective British consciousness. So what to do but deep dive into Britain's most iconic TV shows. These shows aren't just programs that happen to be popular. They're cultural artifacts that shaped how an entire nation sees itself. So here are 7 British television shows that didn't just entertain, they became part of the national DNA. Number 1, Only Fools and Horses. If you want to understand working class British humor, ambition, and resilience all wrapped up in one package, you need to watch Only Fools and Horses. This isn't just a sitcom. It's a 22-year love letter to the dreamers, the hustlers, and the eternal optimists who never quite make it, but never stop trying. Created by John Sullivan, the show features Derek Delboy Trotter and his younger brother Rodney as they navigate life in a Peckham Tower block, constantly chasing get-rich schemes that inevitably go wonderfully wrong. What makes it special is that beneath all the comedy is a genuine warmth and humanity that make you care very deeply about the characters, even when they were being complete idiots. The show's Christmas specials became appointment television for the entire country. The 1996 Christmas trilogy drew over 24 million viewers in a country of 60 million people. That's not just popular television, that is a full-on national event. Phrases like lovely jubbly became part of everyday British vocabulary. And what's remarkable is how the show evolved over 2 decades while maintaining its heart. It started as a simple sitcom about market traders and grew into something that captured the changing face of Britain itself, from Thatcher's Britain all the way through to the new millennium. Number 2, Fawlty Towers, 12 episodes. That's all John Cleese and Connie Booth gave of Fawlty Towers, and somehow those 12 episodes became the gold standard for British comedy. Set in a dysfunctional hotel, the show followed the magnificently awful Basil Fawlty, a man whose combination of snobbery, incompetence, and explosive temper created comedy gold. The genius of Fawlty Towers wasn't just in the writings, though the scripts are masterclasses in farce, but actually it's how it captured something essentially British about class anxiety, social pretension, and the kind of repressed rage that can only come from running a failing seaside hotel. Each episode is like watching something explode in slow motion. You knew everything was going to go horribly wrong from the start, but the joy is in watching exactly how it would all fall apart. The Don't Mention the War episode alone has probably been referenced more than any other piece of British comedy. The show's influence on British comedy cannot be overstated. It proved that British sitcoms could be both hilariously funny and psychologically complex, paving the way for everything that followed. Number 3, Doctor Who. Doctor Who is not just a TV show, it's a British institution that's been running for over 60 years and shows no signs of stopping. Starting as a children's educational program about time travel, it evolved into something much bigger. A uniquely British take on science fiction that combined adventure, humor, and genuine emotional depth. The genius of Doctor Who was its central concept. The Doctor can regenerate, allowing new actors to take over the role while maintaining continuity. This meant the show could constantly reinvent itself, reflecting changing times while maintaining its core identity. From William Hartnell as a grandfather figure to David Tennant's manic energy to Jodie Whittaker's groundbreaking casting as the first female Doctor, each era brought something new while honoring what came before. But it's the cultural impact that's really staggering. The Daleks became part of British popular culture in a way that few fictional creations ever achieve. The TARDIS became as recognizable as Big Ben. The show created a shared mythology that spans generations, grandparents, parents, and children all watching together, each bringing their own favorite Doctor to the conversation. Next up, Coronation Street. Coronation Street holds the extraordinary distinction of being the longest-running TV soap opera still in production, and it's not even close. Since 1960, this show about working-class life in Manchester has been documenting the changing face of British society with a consistency that's almost archaeological in how precise it is. Created by Tony Warren when he was just 24 years old, the show was initially dismissed by executives who thought audiences wouldn't be interested in kitchen sink drama about ordinary people. They were very, very wrong. Coronation Street is another one of those appointment television viewings, drawing audiences of 20 million at its peak. What made Coronation Street special wasn't just its longevity, but its authenticity. This wasn't glamorous people in glamorous situations. This is real people dealing with real problems. The Rover's Return pub became as familiar to British audiences as their local pub, and characters like Ken Barlow and Roy Cropper became part of the national family. The show became a cultural barometer, reflecting changing social attitudes, economic pressures, and evolving communities. Storylines about unemployment, mental health, and family breakdown weren't just entertainment. They were conversations the entire country was having with itself. Number 5, Monty Python's Flying Circus. Monty Python didn't just change British comedy, it changed comedy, period. They created something completely unprecedented. Sketch comedy that abandoned conventional structure, embraced absurdity, and somehow made it all work together. Before Monty Python, comedy followed certain rules, setups, punchlines, logical progression. Monty Python threw all that out the window and created something entirely new. Sketches would end abruptly. Characters would acknowledge that they were in sketches. And the entire concept of making sense became kind of optional. But it wasn't just random silliness. Beneath the absurdity of Monty Python was genuine intelligence, social commentary, and a distinctly British sensibility that questioned authority, mocked pretension, and celebrated the ridiculous. The Ministry of Silly Walks wasn't just funny, it was a perfect parody of British bureaucracy. The show also created a vocabulary that's still used today. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition, it's just a flesh wound, and now for something completely different. These phrases became part of the cultural lexicon, not just in Britain, but worldwide. Number 6, The Office. Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant's The Office revolutionized television by making it feel like it wasn't television at all. Shot in mockumentary style in a dreary Slough office building, the show followed the daily humiliations and small triumphs of employees at a paper company, presided over by the magnificently awful David Brent. What made The Office special wasn't just the innovative format, though. It was its unflinching commitment to realism. This wasn't the kind of workplace comedy where everyone was secretly attractive and witty. These were genuinely ordinary people doing genuinely mundane jobs, and somehow they made it compelling. The show's influence on both British and international television can't be overstated. It proved that audiences were hungry for something more realistic than traditional sitcoms, paving the way for countless mockumentary-style shows. The American version, while I think is very good in its own right, proved that the format could travel while maintaining its essential humanity. David Brent became a cultural icon not because he was likable, but because he was so uncomfortably recognizable. Everyone had worked for David Brent at some point, and the show's genius was in making people laugh at him while simultaneously making you cringe in recognition. Number 7, Dad's Army. Dad's Army proved that you could make a comedy about World War II that was both genuinely funny and deeply respectful to the people who lived through it. Created by Jimmy Perry and David Croft, the show followed the Home Guard unit in a fictional seaside town of Walmington-on-Sea, a group of men too old, too young, or too unfit for regular military service. The genius of Dad's Army was in its characters. Captain Manwaring's pompous incompetence, Sergeant Wilson's upper-class politeness, or Corporal Jones's well-meaning panic. Each character was perfectly drawn and brilliantly performed. They weren't cartoon figures, they were recognizable British types treated with affection rather than mockery. The show became a Sunday evening institution, drawing audiences of over 18 million at its peak. It also created a shared understanding of British character during the war. What made Dad's Army truly special was how it captured something essential about British identity. The idea that ordinary people could rise to extraordinary circumstances, that humor could triumph over adversity, and that there was something inherently noble about muddling through against impossible odds. Now that brings me to the end of my research on these 7 iconic shows. Comment below and tell me what shows you would include, as well as your feedback on which ones of these shows you consider the most wonderfully British. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.